8 winners from different countries and 3 different continents. And as we've already noted, that over the passage of the existence of the fund, we are now reaching 140 winners from 60 different countries. So there's a little catching up to do.
What did King Charles do that pushed his devoted sister past the point of no return? The betrayal runs deeper than anyone could have imagined. When news breaks about the British royal family, it typically follows a familiar pattern. A carefully worded statement appears on official letterhead. Photographers capture images at scheduled events.
Equal between men and women. It took a little bit longer with eventing, but not that much. And I think it says a lot for the sport in general, and a lot for horses in particular, that is entirely acceptable, and it works.
The public receives information through established channels, filtered and presented with the polish that centuries of tradition demand. But occasionally, something different happens, something that cannot be entirely contained by protocol or managed by palace communications teams. The relationship between King Charles and his sister, Princess Anne, has long been regarded as one of the strongest bonds within the royal family. Born just 21 months apart in the early 1950s, the 2 eldest children of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip grew up together in a unique world of privilege and duty. While their younger brothers Andrew and Edward came along years later, Charles and Anne shared a childhood shaped by their mother's unexpected ascension to the throne. When they were still very young, they moved into Buckingham Palace together. They learned the weight of royal responsibility together. And for decades, they stood side by side as the monarchy navigated changing times. According to reports from several royal correspondents, Anne has been described by those close to the king as one of the few people he truly trusts without reservation. While Queen Camilla plays an important role in his personal life, Anne occupies a different position entirely. She understands the institution from the inside. She remembers the same childhood moments, carries the same family history, and operates with a directness that apparently Charles values deeply. Some sources suggest she even calls him by the affectionate nickname Old Bean, a term that reflects both humor and the comfort of a lifelong relationship. This closeness has proven especially significant since Charles took the throne following his mother's death in September 2022. The transition brought new pressures and responsibilities, and Anne stepped forward as a steady presence. At the coronation, the king entrusted her with the ceremonial role of Gold Stick-in-Waiting, a position of symbolic importance that demonstrated his confidence in his sister. When he faced a cancer diagnosis in early 2024, Anne was among those who helped carry the weight of royal duties during his treatment. Their partnership seemed unshakable, built on decades of shared experience and mutual respect. But families are complex, even royal ones. Behind the coordinated public appearances and the carefully managed image of unity, there are real people with real emotions, disagreements, and occasionally, real hurt. The structure of monarchy demands a certain performance. Personal feelings must often be set aside in favor of duty and continuity. Yet that does not mean those feelings disappear. They simply exist beneath the surface, managed and contained, until sometimes they cannot be anymore. Recent months have seen subtle shifts in the usual patterns. Royal observers who follow the family closely began noticing small things. The positioning of family members at certain events. The way Anne's public schedule seemed to expand even further, taking her across the country and abroad with remarkable frequency. The tone of brief comments made at official functions. Nothing dramatic enough to generate headlines on its own, but enough to spark quiet speculation among those who pay attention to such details. Princess Anne has built a reputation over more than 5 decades as perhaps the most dedicated working member of the entire royal family. The numbers tell a remarkable story. In 2024, despite suffering a serious head injury in June that left her hospitalized with a concussion, she still managed to complete 474 official engagements. That total included 395 duties within the United Kingdom and 79 abroad. This marked the 4th consecutive year she held the title of hardest working royal, a distinction that speaks to her extraordinary commitment. To put that in perspective, King Charles came in 2nd place with 372 engagements, and he faced his own health challenges throughout the year with cancer treatment. Prince Edward managed 293. His wife Sophie completed 257. Even Queen Camilla, who also took on additional responsibilities during the king's illness, carried out 182 engagements. Anne's pace stands far above the rest, a pattern she has maintained year after year with little fanfare or public recognition beyond the annual tallies compiled from official records. This work ethic did not develop recently. From the moment she came of age and began official duties, Anne approached royal service with a seriousness that set her apart. She attended more events than her siblings. She traveled more extensively. She took on patronages with organizations ranging from Save the Children, where she has served for over 50 years, to agricultural societies, military charities, and sporting organizations. She became an accomplished equestrian, even competing in the 1976 Olympics, the first British royal to do so. Through it all, she maintained a low profile, rarely seeking attention for her work and often bristling when media coverage focused on anything beyond the substance of her duties. Her approach to royal life has always been practical rather than glamorous. She drives herself to events when possible. She rejected titles for her children to allow them more normal lives. She dresses functionally, favoring the same outfits repeatedly rather than constantly updating her wardrobe for public consumption. In interviews over the years, she has made clear that she views her role as a job to be done competently, not a platform for personal visibility. This philosophy has earned her deep respect from many quarters, even as it sometimes made her seem distant or unapproachable to casual observers. The public generally sees Anne as steady and unchanging, a constant in a royal family that has weathered considerable turbulence over the past several decades. While her brothers faced very public difficulties in their marriages, while her nephew Harry departed for California amid family tensions, while various scandals emerged and faded, Anne simply kept working. She represented stability. She embodied the old-fashioned notion of duty before self, and she did so without complaint or apparent need for recognition. Yet this image of unshakable composure, while largely accurate, also obscures the reality that Anne remains human. She has experienced personal heartbreak, including her own divorce in the early 1990s. She survived a kidnapping attempt in 1974 that left others injured. She has watched her family face criticism and crisis repeatedly throughout her life. The difference is simply that she has chosen to process these experiences privately, maintaining the public facade that royal protocol demands. So when changes in her demeanor or schedule occur, they carry particular weight. People who know her well, who have worked alongside her for years, notice when something is different. And in recent months, according to some reports, something has indeed been different. Not obvious enough for casual observers, perhaps, but present nonetheless. A certain distance where there was once warmth, a formality replacing easy familiarity, the kind of shift that happens when trust has been tested, or when someone feels they have been placed in an impossible position. Understanding Princess Anne requires looking back to where her story began. She was born on August 15, 1950, at Clarence House in London, the second child of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Her arrival came during a different era for the family. Her mother was not yet queen, and the future seemed less certain. Anne's grandfather, King George VI, still occupied the throne, and no one could have predicted that within 2 years, everything would change. When Anne was just 18 months old, her grandfather died unexpectedly. Her mother, only 25 at the time, became Queen Elizabeth. The family moved into Buckingham Palace, and suddenly the young prince and princess found themselves at the center of an institution that would shape every aspect of their lives. Charles, not yet 4 years old, became heir to the throne. Anne, still a toddler, became second in line. Their childhood, already unusual by any standard, took on an entirely different character. Growing up in the palace meant living in a world of protocol and expectation. Both children were cared for primarily by a governess named Catherine Peebles, who handled their early education. Their mother, now carrying the weight of the crown, traveled extensively for diplomatic engagements. Their father took on many of the day-to-day parenting duties, though even those were filtered through the lens of royal responsibility. According to various accounts, both Charles and Anne spent significant time with staff rather than their parents, a reality that shaped their development in profound ways. The two eldest children responded to this upbringing in markedly different ways. Charles was reportedly a sensitive and bookish child who struggled with the physical demands his father placed on him. He became seasick on sailing trips and did not respond well to being shouted at, something that apparently happened with some frequency. Anne, by contrast, seemed to thrive under her father's approach. She took to outdoor activities naturally. She loved horses, camping, and sailing. She developed a dry sense of humor that matched her father's own wit. Several people who knew the family have suggested that Anne shared more personality traits with Prince Philip than any of his other children. She was single-minded, sporty, and fearless. She cared little for what others thought of her and spoke her mind directly. Where Charles seemed more like his mother, thoughtful and reserved, Anne embodied her father's brisk, no-nonsense spirit. One observer noted that Philip almost treated Anne as a son, encouraging her to take risks and pursue physically demanding activities without hesitation. This dynamic between father and daughter proved particularly important in Anne's development as an athlete. While many assume it was Queen Elizabeth who inspired Anne's equestrian career, it was actually Prince Philip who played the larger role. He had no reservations about letting his daughter expose herself to the dangers inherent in competitive riding. He taught her to sail with considerably more success than he had achieved with Charles. Anne responded enthusiastically, showing natural talent and determination. By the time she was 11, Anne had begun competing seriously. At 21, she won the individual title at the European Eventing Championship riding a horse named Doublet. The achievement was significant enough that she was voted Sports Personality of the Year by the BBC in 1971. She went on to win 2 silver medals, one individual and one team, at the 1975 European Championships. The following year, she made history by becoming the first member of the British royal family to compete in the Olympic Games, riding in Montreal on one of her mother's horses. Her commitment to equestrian sport continued for years. She competed in the Grand Military Steeplechase and other prestigious races. She served as president of the International Equestrian Federation from 1986 to 1994. Even today, decades later, horses remain central to her life at Gatcombe Park, the country estate where she lives. Her property hosts international riding competitions on courses she designed herself. The passion that began in childhood has never diminished. But Anne's life was never just about sport. From a very young age, she seemed to understand that being royal meant carrying responsibilities. She began undertaking official engagements at 18, earlier than was strictly necessary. While other young women her age were exploring newfound freedom, Anne was representing the crown at ceremonies and events. She approached these duties with the same seriousness she brought to everything else. There was no learning curve, no period of adjustment. She simply got on with the work. In 1970, the same year she began her official role, Anne also took on her first major charitable position. She became president of Save the Children, an organization founded decades earlier to help children suffering from famine and malnutrition. It would become one of the most important associations of her life. Over the next several decades, Anne traveled extensively on behalf of Save the Children, visiting some of the poorest and most vulnerable communities on Earth. Her trips took her to Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Sierra Leone, Uganda, South Africa, and dozens of other countries. She went to refugee settlements. She visited hospitals treating children with serious illnesses. She saw firsthand the impact of conflict, poverty, and natural disasters on young lives. These were not ceremonial visits. She spent time understanding how programs worked on the ground, learning about the specific challenges different regions faced. and gaining insight into what actually helped versus what merely looked good on paper. Anne herself has acknowledged that it took roughly 10 years before she felt confident enough to contribute meaningfully to public debates about Save the Children's work. She understood that her role required more than just showing up and shaking hands. She needed genuine knowledge and understanding, so she put in the time, year after year, building a depth of expertise that eventually made her one of the most effective advocates the organization had ever known. In 1990, she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by the President of Zambia in recognition of her humanitarian efforts. When Queen Elizabeth stepped down as patron of Save the Children in 2016, Anne took over the role. By that point, she had been involved with the organization for 46 years. In a statement, she wrote that she was proud of her long association with Save the Children and honored to succeed her mother. She described it as an organization that embodies compassion, openness, and excellence. The words reflected genuine feelings. This was not just another patronage on a long list. It was work that clearly mattered to her deeply. Beyond Save the Children, Anne gradually accumulated more than 300 other patronages and presidencies. She worked with organizations focused on disabilities, sports, agriculture, science, and healthcare. She held positions with military charities and educational institutions. She became Chancellor of University College London. She served on the International Olympic Committee. The breadth of her commitments was staggering, yet she somehow managed to give meaningful attention to all of them. What set Anne apart was not just the number of engagements, but the approach she brought to each one. She refused special treatment. She often drove herself to events rather than requiring a driver and security detail. She recycled outfits repeatedly, sometimes wearing the same dress to events decades apart. She showed up on time, stayed as long as necessary, and moved on to the next commitment. There was no drama, no seeking of attention, no concern for how she appeared in photographs or headlines. This practical approach extended to her personal life as well. When she married Mark Phillips in 1973, she declined the offer of titles for her husband. When their 2 children were born, Peter in 1977 and Zara in 1981, they became the first grandchildren of a sovereign to bear no royal titles. Anne later explained that she believed they were better off without such designations. It would allow them more normal lives, free from some of the constraints that came with being official members of the royal family. The decision reflected Anne's broader philosophy. She had no interest in the ceremony for its own sake. She valued function over form, substance over appearance. When asked about her work, she tended to deflect praise and redirect attention to the organizations she supported, rather than her own efforts. This modesty sometimes made her seem aloof or unapproachable, especially to media who wanted more colorful quotes and dramatic moments. She famously told photographers to leave her alone at the badminton horse trials in 1982, using language that generated headlines. The press dubbed her royal rudeness at various points in her career. Yet those who worked closely with Anne painted a different picture. They described someone with sharp intelligence, genuine compassion, and an excellent sense of humor. She was direct, yes, and had little patience for inefficiency or unnecessary fuss. But she treated everyone with professional courtesy, from world leaders to the staff who maintained her estate. She remembered details about people's lives and followed up on conversations from previous meetings. Behind the stern exterior was someone who cared deeply about doing her job well and making a real difference through her work. Her first marriage ended in divorce in 1992 after years of strain. That same year, she married Timothy Lawrence, a naval officer who had served as an aide to her mother. They wed quietly at a small church in Scotland, avoiding the enormous public ceremony that had accompanied her first wedding nearly 20 years earlier. The choice reflected her preference for privacy and personal matters. Lawrence has remained largely out of the spotlight, though he accompanies Anne to many official events and has been described as a supportive presence in her life. Through all of this, Anne maintained her grueling work schedule. Year after year, she topped the list of most engagements completed by any royal. She traveled constantly, often spending weeks at a time away from home. She rarely complained and never sought recognition for her efforts. It simply was what the job required, and she had long ago committed herself to doing that job to the absolute best of her ability. The relationship between siblings often becomes more complex when professional responsibilities intersect with personal bonds. For Charles and Anne, this dynamic took on particular significance when Charles assumed the throne in September 2022. The transition brought with it not just a change in titles, but a shift in how the monarchy would operate going forward. And with that shift came decisions that would affect everyone in the family, including his sister. For years, there had been discussion about Charles's vision for the monarchy. The concept, often referred to as a slimmed-down approach, had been mentioned in various contexts since at least the 1990s. According to royal biographer Robert Hardman, there is actually little concrete evidence that Charles ever explicitly called for such a plan. However, it was widely understood that he envisioned the monarchy moving forward with a smaller core of working royals, rather than the extended network of cousins, uncles, and aunts who had appeared on the Buckingham Palace balcony during earlier decades of his mother's reign. The thinking, as observers have interpreted it, was about sustainability in the 21st century. When Queen Elizabeth took the throne in the 1950s, there were numerous extended family members who carried out official duties. Over time, this created certain expectations and financial obligations. Each working royal required security, staff, and funding from the sovereign grant, the public money allocated to support the monarchy. Charles apparently looked at this model and concluded that it could not continue indefinitely in the same form. His vision, as it was understood, centered on a core group. This would include the monarch and their consort, their children and grandchildren in the direct line of succession, and potentially a few other senior figures. The idea was not necessarily to remove people currently serving, but rather to avoid expanding the roster as new generations came of age. It meant that in the future, only those closest to the throne would be full-time working royals, while others would be expected to pursue careers and lives outside the institution. However, events did not unfold as anyone might have anticipated. In January 2020, Prince Harry and his wife Meghan announced they were stepping back from their roles as senior royals. The departure removed two people who had been expected to form part of that core working group. Then Prince Andrew was forced to step away from public duties following the controversy surrounding his association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. His appearance on a BBC interview in late 2019 had generated intense criticism, and by 2024, he had essentially withdrawn from royal life entirely. These departures fundamentally changed the landscape. What might have been a gradual transition became an immediate reality. The working royal family suddenly consisted of a much smaller number of people than originally planned. King Charles and Queen Camilla formed the center. Prince William and Princess Catherine represented the next generation. Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, continued their duties. The Duke of Gloucester and the Duke of Kent, both elderly cousins of the late Queen, maintained limited schedules. And then there was Princess Anne. The reduction in numbers meant that the workload had to be distributed among fewer people. This created particular pressure in 2024, when both King Charles and Princess Catherine were diagnosed with cancer and had to reduce their public engagement significantly. The burden fell heavily on those who remained active. Queen Camilla increased her schedule. Prince William balanced his duties with supporting his wife and caring for their 3 children. Prince Edward and Sophie took on additional commitments, but it was Anne who carried the heaviest load by far. Her 474 engagements in 2024 represented an enormous amount of work under any circumstances. The fact that she managed this while recovering from a serious head injury in June that year made it even more remarkable. She had been hospitalized with a concussion, believed to have been caused by impact from a horse. Doctors advised rest. Yet within weeks, she was back to her full schedule, traveling around the country and abroad, attending ceremonies, visiting organizations, and representing the crown. Some royal observers began to question whether the situation was sustainable. Royal expert Richard Fitzwilliams noted that Anne had made it clear she disagreed with the concept of a slimmed-down monarchy. Her point, as Fitzwilliams understood it, was that the institution was already slimmed down considerably without Harry, Meghan, and Andrew. Reducing it further would place an unreasonable burden on those who remained. The statistics told a stark story. When comparing Anne's 474 engagements to William's 166, the disparity becomes obvious. Even accounting for William's responsibilities as heir and his need to support Catherine during her treatment, the difference suggests an imbalance in how duties were distributed. Anne was doing nearly 3 times the work of her nephew, despite being 25 years older, and having no obligation to maintain such a pace at her age. Royal commentator Tina Brown described the situation bluntly in 2024, saying that Charles had spent years talking about a slimmed-down monarchy, but now it had become so reduced that it was practically skeletal. The irony was not lost on anyone. The king's long-held vision had been realized, but through circumstances he had not planned for or wanted. And the result was an institution struggling to maintain its visible presence and meet its commitments. There were also questions about what this meant for the future. As the current working royals age, who would step in to fill their roles? William and Catherine's children are still very young. Prince George is only in his early teens, and his siblings are even younger. It will be years before they can take on official duties. In the meantime, the gap between the senior generation and the next is wide and growing more concerning. Some suggested bringing Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, the daughters of Prince Andrew, into working royal roles. Both had maintained relatively positive public profiles despite their father's controversies. They already supported various charitable causes and had experience attending royal events. However, their status remained unclear. Neither had been given official positions, and with their fathers sidelined, the prospects seemed uncertain at best. For Anne, these institutional challenges intersected with personal relationships. She and Charles had always been close, sharing childhood memories and a deep understanding of what royal life demanded. She had supported him throughout his years as heir apparent and stood by him at his coronation. Yet the practical reality of his reign had placed her in an increasingly difficult position. She was essentially holding the monarchy together through sheer determination and an extraordinary work ethic, doing far more than anyone her age should reasonably be expected to do. Friends and colleagues who knew Anne well described subtle changes in her demeanor during this period. She remained professional and committed to her duties. She never complained publicly or suggested that she felt overburdened. But those who had worked with her for decades noticed a certain weariness that had not been there before. The sparkle in her dry wit seemed dimmed at times. The energy that had carried her through 50 years of service showed signs of strain. The situation also highlighted philosophical differences between the siblings. Charles had spent his entire adult life developing ideas about how to modernize the monarchy and make it more efficient and cost-effective. He believed in focusing resources on a core group and presenting a more streamlined public face. Anne, by contrast, had always valued the widespread presence that came from having multiple working royals engaging with communities across the country and around the world. She believed the institution's strength lay partly in its visibility and accessibility. These were not merely abstract disagreements about royal strategy. They had real implications for how Anne lived her life and how much she would be expected to sacrifice for the family. Every time she took on another engagement to cover for someone else, every time she traveled to yet another event because no one else was available, she was bearing the weight of decisions made at a level above her. She could not make policy. She could not expand the roster of working royals. She could only continue doing what she had always done, which was serve without complaint. The dynamic created an unusual tension. On one hand, Charles surely appreciated his sister's dedication and reliability. She was perhaps the one person he could always count on to fulfill her duties without drama or complications. On the other hand, his vision for the monarchy's future effectively meant that she would have to maintain this exhausting pace indefinitely, with no prospect of scaling back as she approached her mid-70s and beyond. There were also practical considerations around protocol and decision-making. As king, Charles held ultimate authority over how the family operated. Anne, despite her experience and dedication, remained in a supporting role. She could offer advice and perspective, but she could not override his decisions. This power imbalance, natural in any monarchy, took on particular significance when those decisions directly affected her workload and well-being. By late 2024 and into 2025, observers noted that Anne appeared at some events looking tired, in ways that photographs from earlier years had never captured. She still maintained her usual composure and professionalism. She still fulfilled every commitment on her schedule. But the toll of years of relentless work combined with the added pressure of covering for others was becoming visible. Those who cared about her wondered privately how long she could maintain this pace, and what would happen to the monarchy's public presence if she could not. As Princess Anne moves through her mid-70s, the question of what comes next becomes increasingly relevant. She shows no signs of slowing down or retiring from public life. In early 2025, she dismissed any speculation about stepping back, taking on yet another new patronage with the Murrayfield Injured Players Foundation in Scotland. Rather than scaling back with age, she has maintained and even slightly increased her workload year after year. Her approach stands in contrast to many people her age who have long since retired from full-time work. Anne drives herself to engagements when possible, travels extensively both domestically and internationally, and maintains a schedule that would challenge someone decades younger. In 2025, she is expected to hold the most investiture ceremonies of any royal, despite many of these taking place at Windsor Castle, very close to where Prince William lives. The recognition of her contributions has grown more visible in recent years. In July 2025, the Royal Mint released the first ever official UK coin featuring Princess Anne, created to mark her 75th birthday. The commemorative piece shows her portrait wearing the aquamarine pineflower tiara and includes the inscription, celebrating 75 years of duty and devotion. Public response was enthusiastic, with many commenting that such recognition was long overdue. Her children, Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall, have both built lives largely outside the royal spotlight, exactly as their mother intended when she declined titles for them. Both are now parents themselves, making Anne a grandmother 5 times over. At Gatcombe Park, her country estate, Anne finds respite from the constant demands of royal life. The property hosts equestrian events on courses she designed herself, keeping her connected to the sport that has meant so much throughout her life. Yet beneath the composed exterior, there must be moments of exhaustion. 75 years is a long time to live with the weight of duty and expectation. More than 50 years of intensive public service takes a toll that cannot be entirely hidden. The head injury she sustained in 2024 served as a reminder that she is not invincible, despite often seeming that way. She returned to work within weeks, but such incidents raise questions about what would happen if she were forced to stop. The monarchy's future structure remains uncertain in ways that directly affect Anne. King Charles is 76 and undergoing cancer treatment. Princess Catherine completed chemotherapy in 2024, but continues to maintain a reduced schedule. Prince William balances his duties with being a hands-on father to 3 young children. The next generation will not be ready to take on official roles for at least another decade. This leaves a significant gap that currently depends almost entirely on Anne's willingness to continue working at her current extraordinary pace. Some royal experts have suggested that Anne disagrees with the slimmed-down monarchy concept because she understands the practical implications better than most. She has seen firsthand what happens when too few people try to maintain too broad a presence. The institution risks becoming less visible, less connected to communities across the nation, and ultimately less relevant to people's daily lives. Her decades of experience have shown her how much these connections matter. Her legacy will likely be defined by this unwavering commitment to service, rather than by any particular dramatic moment or achievement. She never sought the spotlight or tried to modernize her image for contemporary audiences. She simply did the work, year after year, with a consistency that now spans more than half a century. In an age of constant media attention and carefully curated public personas, there is something almost radical about her straightforward approach. Looking ahead, the question remains whether the current model can be sustained. Anne cannot work at this pace forever, regardless of her determination. When she eventually does slow down or step back, the monarchy will lose not just a productive member, but perhaps its most reliable and dedicated representative. No one else in the family has shown the same capacity for sheer volume of work, combined with quiet competence. For now, Anne continues forward much as she always has. She attends ceremonies, visits organizations, travels to represent the crown, and maintains the standards she set for herself decades ago. She does this while navigating whatever personal feelings she may have about decisions made above her level, about workloads that seem unsustainable, about family dynamics that have grown more complex over time. Her silence on these matters speaks to both her discipline and her understanding of what royal service requires. The woman who once told photographers to leave her alone, who rejected titles for her children, who chose practicality over glamour at every turn, remains true to those same principles as she approaches the later stages of her public life. She embodies a particular vision of what it means to serve the crown, one focused on substance rather than image, on consistency rather than headlines, on quiet dedication rather than dramatic gestures. Whether that vision can survive in a changing world remains to be seen.